Hi folks, HR Funk here with a brand new red dot optic from Hilux Optics. In fact, this optic is so new, it's not even out on the market yet. As I record this is August of 2025, and this is not going to be released until sometime next month in September. What I have here is the Hilux TD3E. Now, if you're not familiar with Hilux Optics, they have an extensive line that includes everything from tactical scopes to vintage rifle scopes to hunting scopes to red dots for both rifles and pistols. They also have spotting scopes and binoculars, and they even have scope mounting hardware. But for this video, I'm going to focus in on this red dot optic. As I said, it is brand new. This is an RMSC footprint handgun optic. It features a multi-reticle system, and the first thing I'm going to do is a close-up review and tell you all about its features and functions. Then we'll get into some testing. So here we go. And here is our first up-close look at the Hilux TD3E. As you can see, it is an enclosed emitter style optic. Also, it is built on the RMSC pattern, and as such, I had no problem whatsoever mounting it to my optic test platform, that being the Ruger RXM that you see right here. I used two of the included screws, and there were 4 different sets of screws that came with the TD3E, and these are the longer M4 style screws, and they bolted right up to the slide of the RXM. As I said, there was no problem whatsoever with the mounting. Also, the screws have Loctite already installed, so I didn't even have to do that. Something that's a little bit hard to see, and I'm trying to get you a look at it here, is the fact that the TD3E, as you see it in front of the camera, is actually composed of 2 parts. One is the optic itself that you see in the center, and wrapped around it, coming up both sides across the top and actually extending across the bottom, is an optional blackened stainless steel sight guard. Now, the body of the TD3E is constructed from 7075 T6 aluminum, so it's already a pretty durable substance, but the optional stainless steel sight guard adds an extra measure of protection and durability for the optic to protect it from virtually any sort of drop, ding, or impact calamity that might otherwise cause some problem. With this optional sight guard, you don't have to worry too much about anything that's going to impact the optic. It should survive just about anything, but we are going to test that as the video goes on. The objective lens of the TD3E is 23 millimeters wide by 16 millimeters high. Also, it is an aspherical lens meant to eliminate any optical distortions around the outer edge of the sight picture. And I have looked through this optic, and I can tell you that everything looks very clear. I'll try to get a view through the TD3E, but as always, when I try to do that with a camera, sometimes it doesn't look all that great. It virtually always looks better when you're looking at it with your eye than it looks through the lens of a camera when I try to get a video recording. Here is a look at the side-mounted control buttons of the TD3E. As you can see, there is a plus button and a minus button. To turn the optic on, you simply press and release either the plus button or the minus button, and the sight will turn on. If you want to physically turn it off, you can do so by pressing and holding the minus button for at least 3 seconds, and the sight will turn off. These buttons also control the brightness of the reticle. There are 10 brightness levels, and by pressing and releasing the plus button, you can increase the brightness 1 level each time you press and release the plus, or if you want to reduce the brightness, you can press and release the minus button, and once again it will decrease the brightness 1 level each time you press and release. When you get to the bottom brightness setting or the top brightness setting, pressing and releasing either button further will not reduce or increase the brightness of the reticle. The lowest 2 brightness levels for the TD3E are night vision compatible, so if you're going to be using night vision equipment, you can use the TD3E. Also, it features shake-awake technology. After 2 minutes of sensing no movement whatsoever, the sight will sleep, and then once it senses any movement at all, it instantly comes back on, and when it comes back on at the last brightness setting that was selected by the shooter. The TD3E has a side-mounted battery that you see here, so there's no need to dismount the sight in order to change the battery. It utilizes a CR1620 battery with an estimated battery life of 30,000 hours, which is about 3.5 years, just shy of that. And that is on a medium brightness setting with the dot-only reticle selected. Here's a look at the windage and elevation adjustment screws on the TD3E, both of which have 60 minutes of angle of total adjustment, and both of which are graduated in 1.5 minute of angle clicks. Back at the rear of the deck, we can see an auxiliary sight. So if you have the TD3E mounted on a pistol and you're not able to co-witness the sight because the deck is too high and you're not able to use the rear sight, you do have that auxiliary sight built into the optic itself. I'm not really able to see the front sight when I look through here and try to get a sight picture, so a lot of that is going to depend on what handgun you're using and how high that front sight is. I have been trying for several minutes to get you a good look at the reticle through the TD3E, and this is about as good as it's going to get. As I said earlier in the video, it looks much better to your actual eye than it looks through the camera lens. In any case, this is a multi-reticle system optic, and by pressing and holding the plus button for 3 seconds, you can toggle through the reticle options. There is a 3 minute of angle dot only, a 40 minute of angle circle only, and you also have a combination of the 40 minute of angle circle with the 3 minute of angle dot in the center. As a lot of you know, I prefer the circle dot style reticles, and this one looks very clear to me when I'm looking at it with my eye, despite what it looks like through the camera right now. The TD3E has an overall length of 1.6 inches, a height of exactly 1 inch, and a width of 1.18 inches, but I don't believe the height and width include the sight guard. I don't have the dimensions for the sight guard, but it's going to add a little bit of width and a little bit of height to this optic. The weight of the TD3E is 1 ounce, but once again, I don't think that includes the weight of the sight guard. In any regard, it does not add a tremendous amount of weight. The TD3E is waterproof to a rating of IPX7. We will be testing that. That should mean that it is submersible to a depth of 1 meter. It is shockproof and tested to a level of 1000 Gs. And also, it has a lifetime warranty on the hard parts of the optic, and for the electronic components, the warranty is 2 years. That warranty is to the original owner, and it has an MSRP of $219. For the first stage of my testing of the TD3E, I headed off to the range, and by the way, I was using the beautiful Broken Lock long rifle range here in north central Ohio. If you're in this area and looking for a place to shoot, check out the Broken Lock website for membership information. In any case, I set up at a distance of 25 yards, and the first order of business was to establish a good 25-yard zero for the TD3E. After I had done that, I fired a 5-shot group from that distance of 25 yards, and here's how it went. Not bad at all. That group from 25 yards is coming in at just about exactly 3 inches center to center from that distance of 25 yards. It's nicely centered into the target. I'm going to go ahead and cover up these shot holes with some stickers so we can tell where they are. Then we'll head back to the shop and go on with some more of the endurance testing for the TD3E. And behind me here is that target that I used at 25 yards with the shot holes covered up with the black stickers. I will continue to use this same target throughout the testing of the TD3E to see if there is any zero shift whatsoever. By the way, I forgot to mention this before, the ammunition that I'm using for this test is 124 grain Blazer brass. This is a full metal jacket load, and I'm going to continue to use that also all the way through the test. So now we're going to get into the endurance testing for the TD3E. The first thing is going to be the extreme cold weather test, where I place the handgun with the optic inside my freezer, and I'm going to leave it there for a time period of 24 hours. Here we go. And here is a dramatic shot of my freezer, and the TD3E is going in here. for a time period of 24 hours, give or take, unless I forget about it. In that case, it might stay in there till whenever the next time is I come down to get some hamburger or a steak or something like that. It has been just over 24 hours since I put the Ruger RXM with the Hilux TD3E into my freezer. I put it in at about 11:40 yesterday. It is now 11:55, so just slightly over 24 hours, and I'm about to pull it out and we'll see how it's doing. By the way, this time around I decided to put a thermometer into my freezer so I would be able to see just exactly what the temperature is in there, and as soon as my camera decides to focus, let's see here. Looks like it's slightly below zero. Actually, I take that back, just slightly, but about 5 degrees above zero, which is where the TD3E has spent the last 24 plus hours, and it appears to still be working just fine. Now, as per my testing protocol, we're going to move it over to the shop area, and it is immediately going to go into hot water. In fact, the temperature of this water, if I can get another view here, appears to be 132 degrees. This test, as some of you know, has completely rendered some optics inoperative. If there's going to be water incursion into an optic, it's going to occur during a test like this, because after all that time in the extreme cold temperature, all of the seals in the optic have constricted or contracted slightly. So when I place it into the hot water, this is the greatest opportunity for any water to make its way inside of the optic. Now I'm going to remove the camera from its stand, and we'll get a look together and see if the TD3E is still working. And yes, in fact it is. I just saw the dot there a moment ago, somewhere in there. And of course it looks very distorted through the water. You can see the water steaming, by the way. I'm going to leave the optic submerged for the next hour, then I'll pull it out again and we'll see how it's doing. Moment of truth, folks. It has been almost exactly 1 hour. It is 12:50. I put the TD3E along with the RXM into the water at about 11:50. So I'm going to pull this out and we'll see how it's doing, and it seems to still be working just fine. Let's toggle through the reticle options quickly. This is the dot only. And I pushed the wrong button and managed to turn it off. There we go. Now let's toggle through the reticle options. There is the circle, and I know you can't really see it, but let me make sure that I have, yes, that is the circle dot, and I don't know if I can try to get this into some sort of focus. It's not looking like it. You'll have to take my word for it. That's the circle dot reticle. So everything seems to be working fine on the TD3E. Next, we're going to head back to the range and see if there's any perceptible deviation in its performance. And I'm back at the range with the RXM and the TD3E. In just a couple of minutes, I'm going to start to do some shooting. And the first thing I'm going to look at is to see whether or not there's been any shift in the zero of this optic as a result of the extreme temperature testing and also the submersion testing that has been done to this point. If everything looks good, I'll go on from there and we'll start doing some drop testing. So let's get right into it. As usual, I can't see any of those shots from 25 yards. I'm going to have to walk down range and see where they hit. No zero shift whatsoever. Those 5 shots printed right over top of the first 5 shots. So now let's go on. We'll start doing some drop testing and see how that goes. Here we go with the first drop test. I have got a solid block of hardwood that I'm going to place on the ground. And the idea is to try to drop the pistol so it lands on the optic so it absorbs the greatest amount of shock. And I'm going to start out dropping it from a height of about 3 feet. There's one. That was pretty much a direct hit on the optic. There's 2. And there's 3. Now, let's go back and see if it held 0. All right, once again, let's head down range. Everything's still looking great after that first drop test. I've got 4 out of the 5 that went right on top of these other shots. This was shot number 3, and I'm going to place the blame for that either on me or perhaps that round of ammunition, because everything else is staying right here, and then just that one shot deviated. But this was, as I said, the 3rd shot, and everything is still looking great. So let's move on to the next test. Drop test number 2, and once again, pistol is unloaded. There's no magazine, no ammunition sight or anything else. This time I'm going to drop it from slightly higher. This is going to be closer to 4 feet, and I'm going to try to drop the pistol so the optic strikes the corners. It's going to be the right corner and then the left corner, and then I'm going to try to angle it a little bit this way so it falls and strikes the rear of the optic housing. Then I'm going to try to angle it a little bit this way. This is going to be hard. I'm going to have to try to catch the edge of the block of wood here and catch the front of the optic. So 4 drops from about 4 feet. That was more on the side of the pistol, so I'm going to try that again. That was better. So there is one side. And again, that one was no good. That was at least on the optic. Now we'll try to get the back. That was just about perfect. The front is going to be a challenge. Let's see. I think I mostly caught it. Might have caught some of the pistol too. Got a couple of superficial scuffs on the sight guard. Optic is still working. Let's see what our 0 looks like. I'm a little worried about that 4th shot. It went off a little before I was expecting it to. It almost seemed like the trigger released a little sooner that time than it should have. But I'll take a look when we get down there and see if, in fact, that 4th shot was a little out of the group with the rest of them. And yes, I played back the video. This was shot number 4. This is a called flyer. Everything else is staying right here. That's really a nice tight group. It's a little bit tending toward the left, but that's probably me. I don't really think that's any issue with the 0 of the optic. But we've got one more drop test to go, so let's see how it fares after that. Final drop test. Once again, the pistol is empty. There's no magazine, there's no ammunition or anything else inside of the pistol, and this time I'm going to be dropping it from a height of about 6 feet. That was pretty much a direct hit right on the optic. I think that caught the side of it. One more. And once again, the TD3E is working. Now, let's see what the 0 looks like. Final test of the 0 for the TD3E. See if I can fire off 5 good shots here. go see where they landed. What we have here, folks, is an anomaly. And I have seen this before when doing drop testing with optics. The very first shot was inexplicably very far off from the rest of the group. I don't think this is attributable to the optic, and I don't think it's been attributable to the optics that I've tested in the past. I think what is happening is when I conduct the drop test, particularly those very high drop tests, somewhere during the drop testing, something is slightly misaligned inside the pistol. I'm not sure if the barrel is jarred a little bit one way or the other, or something else is just a little off. And then after the first shot, it seems like when the pistol comes back out of recoil, everything has reset, and then the rest of the shots are going right where they should be. I've got 4 shots here, dead center in the target, that are 1.5 inches center to center. So we've got tremendous accuracy for those 4 shots. Just the very first one was off considerably. Again, I don't think we can attribute this to the TD3E or, as I said, any of the optics that I've tested in the past. This is something else, and sooner or later I'll figure out this phenomenon. But for now, let's talk about some final thoughts on the TD3E. Final thoughts on the TD3E. First off, this is one tough optic, folks. This thing has gone through all of my testing, and there has never been an issue where the dot has gone out, blinked, or otherwise functioned improperly. All of the controls are still working exactly the way they should be, so no issue with that. That extreme condition testing, where I go directly from the freezer into the hot water, presents a thermal shock to the optic, and that's something, as I said earlier in the video, that has rendered some optics completely inoperative. They just don't work anymore. Others have had incursion of water as a result of that, and sometimes it doesn't show up right away. Sometimes it looks like everything's great until I get out here and start shooting, and then all of a sudden I start to get fogging inside of the optic or something like that. No issues with the TD3E along those lines whatsoever. The accuracy has been very, very good. The stray shots that you saw during the testing, the one shot was definitely a bad shot on my part. The 4th shot of the, I think, second test, or after the second drop test, I know that was a bad shot, so that one can be completely discounted. The high shot on the first test, I think similarly was just something other than a problem with the TD3E. That was either a bad shot on my part or a bad round of ammunition. And as I said, that final shot that was very wide to the right, that's not the optic, and I don't think it's me. Everything looked good on my end, so something else is going on there, and it might be something with the RXM or some other factor. I just don't know. As I said, I've seen that, and it seems to happen semi-routinely, so sooner or later, as I said, I'll figure out what's going on there. There's slight movement in the barrel, and of course the slide to frame fit has a little bit of play. I don't know what that is, but I don't think it's an optic issue. In any case, there is a limited lifetime warranty on the TD3E, as I said before. That covers all of the hard parts, including the sight guard, the optic housing itself, etc. The electronic components have a 2-year warranty. That is to the original purchaser of this optic. And if I remember correctly, the MSRP is about $219 for these, so you're probably going to see street price quite a bit less. In any case, that's the video for today. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions or comments, as always, make sure you forward those to me. Remember to stop by my website, hrfunk.com, and check out the news and information page to see all the latest things going on with me and the channel. And go by the products page, because a lot of the products that I've reviewed have links on that page, and there's information beneath some of those links that'll save you some money if you decide to make a purchase. See you next time, folks. And until then, good shooting. Bye-bye.